AFRI charge than it had been previously because a police officer is there. He said, that's not necessarily anything negative about police officers because to an extent the enforcement of those laws is their job. But if you put them into schools, what is really typical adolescent behavior gets elevated to criminal behavior. You end up with school offenses that are being treated as criminal offenses rather than disciplinary matters. Officer Brandon McLeod, the Leonard police officer assigned to Hyberton High School, said that Hyberton there are typically fewer arrests than there are incidents. And when police are forced to step in, behavior has often escalated beyond what is typical for adolescents. Currently, teens aged 16 and older who are arrested are criminally charged as adults, although that will change for many in December 2019. At Hyberton in 2017, there were 22 documented incidents involving 16 or 17-year-olds, but only 10 of them resulted in arrests. In 2018, as of May 31st, there were 14 incidents and 3 arrests. According to the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office, at South Caldwell High School, there were 12 incidents in 2017 involving 16 and 17-year-olds, 8 of which resulted in arrests. In 2018, there have been 15, 9 of which resulted in arrests. At West Caldwell High School in 2017, there were 3 incidents, and all 3 resulted in arrests. The Sheriff's Office said in 2018, there have been 4 and only 1 resulted in arrests. At Gateway School, there were 8 incidents in 2017, 7 of which resulted in an arrest. In 2018, there have been 4 and 3 resulted in arrests, the Sheriff's Office reported. The objective is not to go out here and charge everybody for every little thing, McLeod said. If we get into where we're charging everybody, then we're really not doing anything to actually invest in what's supposed to be our future. In that context, disorderly conduct, for example, is anything that disturbs the peace, order of discipline at the school, and teenagers may be criminally charged if they don't allow McLeod to de-escalate the situation. I always give them options, he said. Lena Police Chief Scott Brown pointed out that administrators and school faculty are adults who have relationships with the children and are used to working with them in a variety of situations. When it gets to the point that they have to refer it to police, it's something a little bit more serious, Brown said.
Group seeks to help families of the fallen. Spring Lake. Latasha Dawson's children did not need any encouragement to join in the fun for Tuesday's Children Father's Day event on Sunday. My 3-year-old and 10-year-old just left me and went straight to the bounce house, Dawson said. They were like, bye. The Dawsons were some of dozens of military families who participated in the event held at McCormick Farms in Spring Lake. The purpose was to introduce families of fallen soldiers to the Tuesday's Children program as it expands beyond its home base in New York City. We have committed to bringing our programming to the Gold Star families in North Carolina, said Liz Zirkle, director of the Tuesday's Children Military Initiative. The beginning and end is about giving the kids a good day. Zirkle said the nonprofit Tuesday's Children was formed after the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, a Tuesday. Its goal was to help the families of those killed in the attacks and other affected by the tragedy. Gradually, the group's mission expanded to provide mentoring and Other services to the families of soldiers killed in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and other fronts in the war against terror. Our focus is resilience, Zirkle said. It's answering the question of what now? What are the next steps? The group services include youth mentoring, crisis and grief counseling, career guidance, and community service. More information is available at TuesdaysChildren.org. Sunday's Father's Day event was Tuesday's Children's first foray into North Carolina, Zirkle said. First, it gives us an opportunity to meet the families, introduce ourselves, Zirkle said. This is not so much a recruitment as an introduction. At Cornick Farms, the families were treated to a meal and invited to play in a bounce house and other equipment. Caricature artist Bruce Stevenson drew pictures of some of the participants. Dawson brought her 4 sons, Darius Jr., 13, Yvonne, 11, Idarian, 10, and Benjamin, 3. Dawson said the boy's father was killed in Iraq in 2008. Having that connection with other children, it helps him a lot, Dawson said. These kinds of events, I can't stress enough how much it helps the children. It lets them know they're not alone. Dr. Shiona Thing was at the event with her sisters, Shauna Anderson, 12, Johnny Anderson, 11, and mother, Sheena Anderson. Thing said she attended a previous Tuesday's Children event in Washington, D.C. It's a good event, she said. It helps people get together who have similar stories. Dwight Mink was with his friend Jan Blaylock and her sons Jack, 10, and Austin, 8. Mink said the event helped in the family's morale. Just the atmosphere and the location is beautiful, Mink said. Zirkle said Tuesday's Children's goal is to help families of fallen soldiers for years after the loss of a loved one. You just need to know that someone is going to have your back and they're going to have it 5-10 years from now, she said. Once the last casserole dish has been returned, that's when Tuesday's Children arrives.
Local and state, inside politics, district court judge draws opponent. Paul Wolverton. Election season for local and state judges officially starts at noon today. When filing period commences and a local judge has already drawn an opponent, the Cumberland County lawyer Catelyn Young Evans has been campaigning for the seat held by 12-year incumbent District Court Judge Tal Baggett. Both are Democrats. Judicial primaries were canceled this year, so every qualified candidate who files will be on the ballot in November. If 3 or more people file for a seat, the winner can win with far less than 50% of the vote. There have been rumors in political circles that other incumbent judges also will be challenged. Republican Mike Hardin of Fayetteville, who had an unsuccessful run for district court judge in 2016, has maintained his campaign website, and his campaign Facebook page is active. Hardin is an assistant district attorney in Polk County. 7 Cumberland County District Court judge seats and 3 Cumberland County Superior Court judge seats are County Superior Court voters will be considering. Superior Court Judge District 12A held by Democrat Claire Hill, Superior Court Judge District 12C, which has 2 seats. These are held by Mary Ann Talley, who is a Democrat, and Jim Amons, who is unaffiliated. Superior Court judges serve 8-year terms. Cumberland County District Court judges serve 4-year terms. Each of the seats is chosen by voters countywide. In addition to Baggett, voters will be selecting candidates for the seats held by Sherry Siller Mack, April M. Smith, Robert Steele, Stephen Stokes, David Hasty, and Tony S. King. All of those incumbents are Democrats. No signatures required. In March of last year, the legislature voted convert local judge races into partisan elections with partisan primaries. With that change, the Democratic, Republican, and Libertarian parties would start using North Carolina taxpayer money to survey their membership and select their local judicial candidates for the general election ballot in November. This created a tough task for senior resident Superior Court Judge Jim Ammons in Cumberland County, because Ammons does not belong to a political party. Although North Carolina has more unaffiliated voters than it has Republicans, unaffiliated candidates can't run for partisan seats unless they can get hundreds or thousands of voters who live in their district to sign a petition on their behalf. The amount of signatures required varies with the number of voters in the district. Ammons said recently he needed about 2,100 signatures to qualify. He began collecting them more than a year ago. My goal was twice that many, he said. In the end, Ammons said he'd gathered 5,000, and now he doesn't need them. The legislature canceled the signature required for this year's judge elections when it canceled this year's partisan primaries for the judicial seats. In future years, judicial candidates who would rather not belong to a political party won't be able to run unless they gather signatures. Soil and water. The filing period commenced June 11 for the Cumberland County Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor. It runs through July 6. It runs through noon, July 6. According to its website, the Soil and Water Conservation District is a government agency tasked with preventing soil erosion and protecting water resources by providing technical assistance and information on conservation practices. It has 5 supervisors and they serve 4-year terms. As of Thursday, C. Wayne Collier Jr. of Linden had filed for re-election, and Ellison L. Ellison of Fayetteville had filed for election. Meetings. Cumberland County Republican Men's Club. Tuesday, Morgan's Chop House, located at 201 South McPherson Church Road. A buffet dinner at 6 p.m. Meeting is at 7. Guest speaker is Jay Delancey of the Voter Integrity Project. The cost is $18. RSVP is requested. Call or text 910-308-3004 or email tag8@earthlink.net. I repeat, tag8@earthlink.net. Cumberland County Democratic Men's Club, June 26 at K&W Carolina, Bordeaux Shopping Center. The address is 1758 Owen Drive. Dinner seating at 5:30 p.m. Meeting starts at 6. Guest speaker is Carrie Sutton, Chairwoman of the Cumberland County Board of Elections. Inside Politics is published on Mondays. Send news and announcements to Inside Politics at FayeObsever.com. The submission deadline is Thursdays.
More to consider, changing deal on incentives. The Cumberland County Board of Commissioners today is expected to consider a minor change to an economic development incentive agreement with the companies that plan to build a $46 million distribution center in the Cedar Creek Industrial Park. Campbell Soup Supply Company requested an amendment to the agreement according to county records. The company is asking that the first $100,000 of the annual cash incentive grants be paid to Excel Incorporated, doing business as DHL Supply Chain, the record showed. Commissioners agreed in October to give the company grants of not more than 75% of new real property taxes for 7 years. They also agreed to sell about 98 acres in the park to the company for about $1.2 million, which is more than $500,000 less than the fair market value. Robert Van Jones, president of the Fayetteville Cumberland Economic Development Corps, told county officials about the proposed amendment, according to the county documents. He said the amendment was needed so the funds could be used as a match for a state grant and would not change the amount of incentives or relieve Campbell of its obligations under the agreement. The company has agreed to invest at least $40 million in the project and create 140 new full-time jobs, paying an average wage of $32,250. The first 112 jobs will be created by the end of next year, with 7 jobs added each of the next 4 years. The salaries of 18 managers at the facility are expected to average $62,000. Salaries for 30 clerical workers and 92 warehouse workers are expected to average $28,000. DHL also expects to hire 55 part-time workers. The 627,000 square foot center will have the potential to expand by an additional 50%. Commissioners also are expected to meet behind closed doors to discuss a legal matter and hold public hearings on 2 rezoning cases. The meeting is scheduled for 6:40 p.m. in room 118 at the county court.
Lower costs. In return, it will share revenue with the city. City officials have said they hope the deal will bring competition and make it easier for households to get high-speed connections. The area has also been served by CenturyLink and Spectrum. Residents will need wireless antennas installed at their homes for a one-time fee to use Eastern Shore's service.
This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our address is P.O. Box 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at code 910-672-1600 or toll free at 1-844-709-5656. The radio hosts are
Beverly Simonette
and Robert King, and we are proud to serve you today. A method to their madness. Demolition work to begin soon on dated Rowan Street Bridge. Over the next 6 weeks or so, Fayetteville will be losing what has long provided a primary entry into the city at large, the old Rowan Street Bridge. Work already is underway for the demolition of the dated downtown structure, which passes over Hillsborough Street and the CSX and Norfolk Southern Railroads. Don't anticipate one of those social media moments where the bridge is detonated in a huge blast before chunks of concrete rain down in a dark cloud of smoke and dust. It's going to be a slow and steady process, said Jason Salisbury, the District 6 resident engineer with the State Department of Transportation, who was overseeing the work. It's not any kind of explosives with things like that, especially with the railroad. We have to be careful when working in and around the railroad. They have their own requirements. I have a guy out there all the time to make sure that the contractors are meeting their requirements. The Rowan Street Bridge project is an initiative by the Transportation Department and the Fayetteville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization to replace the structurally obsolete bridge along NC 24-210. The state closed the existing connector from Bragg Boulevard to NC 24-210 after opening one span of the new Rowan Street Bridge to Fayetteville traffic on June 5th. For now, only 4 travel lanes, 2 in each direction, are open on the new structure. Once the current bridge is demolished, workers can finish construction on the final 2 travel lanes for a total of 3 lanes in each direction. The permanent traffic shift from the old to the new bridge was necessary for workers to begin demolishing the old structure. The estimated $500,000 demolition is part of an overall $24.4 million contract. The project agreement calls for building 2 spans of the new bridge realigning Murchison Road, Land Street, and Bragg Boulevard into a new intersection with a traffic light. City leaders envisioned the bridge as a new gateway into downtown and a more prominent route to the campus of Fayetteville State University, which is accessible via the nearby Murchison Road. Land Street will be widened to 6 lanes with sidewalks and other enhancements planned on both sides. The dated 4-lane Rowan Street Bridge dates to 1956. Over time, it has become functionally obsolete for today's traffic and requires expensive maintenance, the State Department of Transportation has said. The sturdy structure, mostly built of concrete and steel and concrete girders, has done its job. If you're looking strictly at the number, the traffic count has gone up steadily, he said. We're projecting a traffic volume of 47,500 in 2035, Salisbury said. We built a structure to be able to withstand projected volumes. Work on the new overpass got underway in January of 2017 with construction on the mechanically stabilized earthen wall. ST Wootenpur, a Wilson-based contractor that was awarded the project in October to build and traveling to Fayetteville. That whole area, in my opinion, is receiving a much-needed facelift to handle traffic more efficiently. Perhaps it goes without saying, but Salisbury called the demolition of a bridge pretty dangerous. Each one, he said, poses a different scenario. It's a good thing about it, he said. It's never the same. It keeps you fresh. You definitely don't want to be in or around these things when they pull the collar over it, put the chain around it, and break it into pieces and haul it off. Joey Noyle, the project manager with ST Wootenpur, said the work is inherently dangerous due to exposure to fall hazards, overhead dangers, working around heavy equipment, and in this case, rail traffic. He's a veteran of dozens of bridge demolitions. As Salisbury explained it, work crews typically bring the large equipment in, the cranes and the large saws. Since this bridge might just be demowed and pushed over before it falls, the cutting was expected to begin June 11th, but rain postponed the work for a week. On this demo, the 2 6-man crews with bridge contractor Smith Row Incorporated start approximately midway of the existing bridge and work toward the ends or end vents. Noel said an end vent is the supporting frame forming part of an abutment. You can't just go out there and start taking something down any way they want to, Salisbury said. There's a method to their madness. According to Salisbury, the approximately 6-week time frame is necessary because of the length of the bridge, which tremendous bulk includes 11 interior spans and a support system underneath the structure. It's heavy, he said with a chuckle when asked how much the old Rowan Street structure weighs. The concrete itself is 150 pounds per cubic foot. There's a lot of concrete in that bridge.
Junior Gardner Camp grows fun. Learning. Cumberland County Cooperative Extension Junior Master Gardener Summer Camp is helping children discover the importance of agriculture and the source of our food supply through hands-on learning and fun. The camp, part of Cooperative Extension 4-H Summer Fun Activities, was held June 11 through 15 and provided youngsters ages 9 through 13 the opportunity to learn the importance, uses, clarifications, and life cycle of plants. Jason Wetherington, Cooperative Extension Herbal. The kids are so smart, you only have to show them one time and they will never forget. But we have to show them a real world scenario out in a field or out in a garden where that stays with them for life. Wetherington said the first Junior Master Gardener Summer Camp was held in 2015 and is based on a curriculum from Texas A&M University. Wetherington credits Cumberland County's Extension Master Gardener volunteer program with helping build the camp into a success. There was such a great level of interest from our master gardeners that we really needed this program for our youth, and they lit the spark for this Junior Master Gardener program. And it has been tremendously successful, Wetherington said. One of the highlights of this year's camp was a field trip to Archerville's Buzz, a hydroponic farm just north of Archerville in Sampson County. Owners Jeff and Wendy Woolard converted a former poultry farm structure into a farm where lettuce and greens grow indoors without soil or natural light. The plants receive nutrients through a special watering system beneath a scientifically designed lighting system engineered to produce optimal wavelengths for growth. The children learned about the hydroponic process and sampled different types of lettuce and greens. They expressed amazement when the lighting system was turned on, filling the long windowless room with a hot pink light. The light is actually a blue color, but appears in other camp because we get a lot of hands-on experience with gardening and plants and different examples of activities include arts and crafts, cooking, science and technology workshops, and leadership camps. Youth 4-H membership is required and there are fees for most activities. To see a complete schedule, go to cumberland.ces.ncsu.edu or call 321-6864. Cumberland updates. Tonight, the Board of Commissioners regular meeting is at 6:45 p.m. in room 118 of the Cumberland County Courthouse, located at 117 Dick Street. Anyone wishing to speak during the public comment period should register prior to the start of the meeting. On Thursday, Department of Social Services adoptive and foster parent information sessions held at noon and 6:30 p.m. at DSS 1225 Ramsey Street. You can call 677-2541 for more information. On Sunday, Friends of the Library present author Bryant Simmons at Porter's Library from 3 to 5 p.m. Go to Cumberland.
Covering artifacts off the steamship Pulaski have made an eerie find that gives credence to eyewitness accounts of the night the ship sank in 1838, taking some of the nation's richest people to the bottom of the Atlantic. A mysterious grapefruit-sized incrustation found at the site off North Carolina turned out to be a heavily decorated solid gold pocket watch attached to a gold chain. However, what has historians buzzing about is the fact that the clock's hands are frozen at 11:05 p.m. That's 5 minutes after the time witnesses say the ship's boilers exploded. The dramatic sinking, often referred to as the Titanic of its time, occurred 180 years ago this month. We were shocked, said Max Spiegel of Certified Collectibles Group, which is handling preservation of Pulaski artifacts. It's very unusual to see an artifact with that sort of impression of a historic moment when the ship sank. Think about how fragile the watch's hands are, yet they survived in that exact position. It's one of the most exciting finds we've handled, and we've done a half dozen shipwrecks. The sinking of the Pulaski continues to intrigue historians for countless reasons, including the fact that its ill-fated passengers were then among the wealthiest people in the eastern United States. Nearly half of the 200 people on board died on June 14, 1838, while headed from Savannah, Georgia to Baltimore, Maryland, according to the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Witness accounts say the starboard boiler exploded at about 11 p.m., setting off a grisly chain reaction of death that saw people thrown overboard and drowned, scalded to death, and cut by flying debris, according to state historians. Survivors floated up to 4 days on chunks of the wreck before being rescued, say historians. For the past 180 years, the location of the wreck was among the big mysteries. Then Florida-based Blue Water Ventures International found 2 artifacts engraved with the name Pulaski, confirming its discovery. Blue Water has been working 7 months on the wreck in partnership with Endurance Exploration Group, which holds rights to the site. Among the revelations so far, the ship sank 10 miles further out to sea than historians originally thought. It's 40 miles out, 115 feet down, and surrounded by sharks that have a keen interest in the divers, according to Keith Webb, head of Blue Water Ventures International. The divers have found items valued in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, including 150 gold and silver coins dating back to 1759. Webb considers the watch to be among the most important discoveries, however. Conservation work continues on the timepiece, which he says is covered with intricate engravings. He's intent on solving the Pulaski's many mysteries, including the possibility of showing the ship's owners may have been the ones who caused the disaster by pushing the vessel beyond its capabilities. The artifacts include silverware, keys, thimbles, rare coins, and even a mysterious gold box that conservators have yet to get open. The ship's 14-foot by 12-foot anchor has also been found, but the bell remains elusive, Webb said. I can't believe we can find a thimble on the bottom of the ocean, but not a ship's bell, he said. One thing that he believes will never be known is if the man who owned the gold watch made it off the ship alive and was among those who died. Discovery of the watch is a story in itself, he says, noting a diver working 200 feet off the wreck site found a curious-looking incrustation that turned out to have a fancy gold chain woven into it. The watch was a powerful status symbol that would have been worn by the wealthiest of men in the early 1800s, he said. We've already been contacted by collectors who have shown an interest, said Webb. To me, that thing is priceless. It establishes and verifies the time the ship went down. I can put a price on that kind of discovery. It's possible the find will be topped by in coming weeks, Webb admits. Sonar shows an area north of the wreck site filled with odd shadows. Webb believes it's where the passenger steamer trunks landed, each one crammed with the clothing and valuables wealthy passengers considered important for their travels around the world.
2 prison guards hurt in attack by inmate. Buckner. State authorities say that 2 prison officers suffered non-life-threatening injuries when an inmate attacked them with a homemade weapon. The Department of Public Safety issued a news release saying the attack by inmate Alex Ramirez happened Saturday at Polk Correctional Institution in Buckner. Authorities say 2 correctional officers were taken to a hospital for treatment. One was treated and released later in the day. Ramirez was also taken to a medical facility for evaluation. Authorities plan to pursue criminal charges related to the attack against Ramirez. Prison records show the 23-year-old Ramirez was serving a life sentence after being convicted in 2016 of first-degree murder in Durham County.
From the opinion section, the Observer's editorial. Voter ID plan taken with grain of suspicion. We thought, at first glance, this might be the voter reform measure we could get behind. Simple yes or no. Do we have to show photo ID at the polls or not? No other complications, no other stunts, no sneaky measures to cut down on the Democratic vote while leaving the door open to Republicans. Based on legislation that was filed while the General Assembly was considering a voter ID constitutional amendment, we'd say we were needlessly optimistic. There's still plenty of treachery and trickery afoot. During a session on Thursday, members of the North Carolina House approved rule changes in the state's popular early voting period. They decided to end early voting on the Friday evening before Election Day or a primary instead of on Saturday. They would keep the polls open for the same number of days by starting early voting one day earlier. So what's the harm? Well, it's this. The final Saturday before the actual election is one of the most popular early voting days for African American voters. Cutting that Saturday out may well cut the black vote. Anyone need to guess which party most African American voters are registered in? Yep, Democrat. There they go again, trying to restrict the black and hence Democratic vote with what one federal judge in another voting case called almost surgical precision. Different place, same tricks. Whether it's with gerrymandering or with voting rules, the Republican majority in the General Assembly remains committed to doing everything it can to cut the Democratic vote, even if that means resorting to racial discrimination. So wonder so few African Americans are interested in joining the GOP. But Republicans have to feel motivated to continue that behavior because it works. How else to explain how the party that ranked third in North Carolina voter registration could so dominate in state and federal legislative races? Although their numbers have long been slipping, Democrats still have a decided registration advantage over Republicans. And in the last year, unenrolled voters took over the number 2 registration slot. Modern, computerized redistricting programs can produce remarkable results, even if they do sometimes turn out to be illegal racial gerrymanders. What about voter ID? Perhaps this argument will never be settled, but it is true that so far, most claims of widespread voter fraud have turned out to be bogus. Various investigations across the country have found most claims to be false. Only a tiny fraction of voter fraud allegations turned out to be true, a handful of cases. Still, as hacking and computerized counterfeiting get more common, one would be a bit surprised to see some level of voter fraud become more common. We've long said we could support a straight-up, fairly operated voter ID law in place if the law made it impossible for legitimate voters to be denied access to the polls. That means no charge for the IDs and a substantial outreach effort to find the people who need them, often voters who are extremely poor, old, and minorities. Given this latest attempt to alter early voting, we're finding it hard to trust voter ID efforts or anything else related to voting reform. Before a voter ID goes on the ballot, we want lawmakers to debate and enact the comprehensive rules and guidelines that will govern how the ID process will work. Until that happens, we're all wise to be suspicious.
Letter to the editor about those first ladies regarding Donna Barber's June 13 letter to on the subject of first ladies. Here are a few things Michelle Obama did not do that Melania Trump did. Number 1, pose nude for money. 2, lie on an immigration application. Number 3, lie about having a college degree. Number 4, plagiarize a speech from a former First Lady. Number 5, admit in an interview that she married her husband for his money. As to what Michelle Obama did that was so great, that is a matter of opinion. But her advocacy, she also led and supported programs that encouraged education for girls all around the world. She served as FLOTUS for 8 years, raised 2 well-behaved and respectful daughters, represented the U.S. with class and grace, and served as a role model for young women around the world. Michelle Obama would always go high even when her critics went low with lies and racist insults. If Donna Barber is willing to accept Donald Trump's adultery, pathological lies, and abuse of women and girls, and defend Melania Trump's pornography career and dishonesty about her immigration and education, because unemployment is the lowest in 20 years, then all I can say is that I'm thankful that not everyone is willing to compromise their moral beliefs so cheaply. Patsy Shepard of St. Paul's. This is the letter to the editor.
Marking Tabasco's 150th birthday with a tour of Avery Island by Beth J. Harpaz, the Associated Press, Avery Island, Louisiana. One of the world's most famous condiments, Tabasco celebrates its 150th birthday this year. Edmund McIlhenny created the famous pepper sauce in 1868 on Avery Island, Louisiana. The company is still headquartered there, and it is still run by McIlhenny's descendants. But whether or not you're one of those pepper fiends who shakes Tabasco on everything from eggs to burgers, Avery Island is a fun destination with a neat history. Tour the Tabasco Museum and Factory. Try free samples of Tabasco-infused goodies. Dine on Cajun food and consider trying a Bloody Mary, spiked with Tabasco, of course. There's also a unique nature preserve called Jungle Gardens, where you'll learn the story of how Avery Island helped save an entire species of bird from disappearing in the United States. Despite its name, though, Avery Island is not an island. It's a salt dome, a geological phenomenon in which an underground bed of salt pushes up the terrain. That salt is used to flavor Tabasco. As the story goes, McElhaney planted some pepper seeds he'd been given, and like the peppers they grew, he mashed them up with Avery Island salt, let the mixture age, then added vinegar and packaged the result in bottles designed for cologne. The spicy sauce was a hit. Museum exhibits include vintage bottles along with the wooden barrels still used to age the sauce. A greenhouse displays some pepper plants, so the peppers are now mostly grown outside the United States. The sauce is bottled here, though, and we get a good look at the factory where a stream of bright red bottles flies past. The factory can produce up to 700,000 bottles a day, and you'll see the day's tally on a digital ticker. By the way, the seeds have no connection to the state of Tabasco in Mexico, but the word Tabasco is derived from an Aztec term that means humid land, and the seeds McElhaney planted are said to have originated in Latin America. Across the decades, Tabasco has become a cultural phenomenon as well as a culinary staple. One video in the museum shows Tabasco turning up in everything from Bugs Bunny cartoons to James Bond movies. Tabasco was used as a wartime code word and was included as a condiment in prepackaged meals for U.S. soldiers. And it's sold in 195 countries and territories worldwide. Tabasco's current CEO, Tony Simmons, is McElhaney's great-great-grandson. He says only 2 to 4% of family businesses make it to the 4th generation. Tabasco is already in the hands of the 5th generation. My family is very tied to Avery Island, Simmons told the AP Travel podcast Get Out of Here in an interview. Avery Island is part of the reason we've been able to hold on to our business for 150 years. Food and drink. At the on-site country store, you can try free samples of Tabasco-infused edibles ranging from soft ice cream to soda to pickles. Souvenirs for sale include men's underwear decorated with little red peppers. Next door, the 1868 restaurant, yummy Cajun food like gumbo, crawfish, étouffe, and within sausage is dished out cafeteria style. And as long as someone else is doing the driving, go ahead and treat yourself to a Bloody Mary. Jungle Gardens. Short drive from Tabasco's complex, you'll find Jungle Gardens. The driving route offers a dozen numbered stops for attractions including a palm garden, live oaks, and a 900-year-old Buddha statue. Watch where you step. Alligators abound. But the highlight of Jungle Gardens is Bird City, where on a June day about 1,000 egrets could be seen chattering and calling to one another from raised platforms around a lagoon. Some swooped overhead as an alligator floated by. The story of how the colony was established is remarkable. In the 1890s, snowy egrets had almost been wiped out to extinction in the U.S. according to Eric Johnson, Director of Bird Conservation for Audubon, Louisiana. The birds were hunted for their feathers, which were used in ladies' hats. E.A. McElhaney, son of Tabasco's founder, managed to acquire 8 snowy egrets, built an aviary for them, and hand-raised them. Then he set them free. When they returned on their seasonal migration, they brought more birds with them, and the numbers grew. By the time former U.S. President Teddy Roosevelt, a champion of environmental conservation, visited Avery Island in 1915, he said 40,000 birds were nesting there. Snowy egrets have rebounded nationwide since then, and these days several thousand nesting pairs of snowy and great ones typically arrive on Avery Island in late winter and stay through summer. McElhaney's legacy goes well beyond egrets, Johnson said. McElhaney also helped secure passage of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which was signed into law in 1918. That means Tabasco's 150th birthday isn't the only milestone being marked this year. The Migratory Bird Act, credited with saving many bird species from extinction, marks its centennial this year as well.
This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. we request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville State, North Carolina, 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number 1-844-709-5656. Your radio hosts are
Robert Dean
and Beverlyn Simonette, and we are proud to serve you today. It's the top of the hour and time for our obituaries. The death notices for today: the following deaths have been reported. See upcoming editions of the Fayetteville Obsever for complete obituary information. In Cumberland County, Rose B. Hughes, 97 of Fayetteville, Jernigan Warren Funeral Home will be handling the services. Margaret Boraney, 74 of Fayetteville, Herring Funeral Care and cremations will be handling the services. Retired CSM Homer Carol Waybright, 91 of Fayetteville, Rogers and Brees Funeral Home will be handling the services. Jacqueline Bagoo, 80 of Fayetteville, Herring Funeral Care and cremations will be handling the services. In the Cape Fear region, James Sonny Matthews, 69 of Kingsport, Tennessee, formerly of Wade, Skinner and Smith Funeral Home will be handling the services. Netta M. Wade, 97 of Lillington, O'Quinn Pebbles Phillips Funeral Home and Crematory of Lillington will be handling the services. Ann Greer, 75 of Dunn, Skinner and Smith Funeral Home will be handling the services. Funerals today: McMurray Bruce, 75 of Fayetteville. The funeral will be at 1 p.m. Graveside with military and Masonic honors at Lafayette Memorial Park. Burial will be at Lafayette Memorial Park. Adcock Funeral Home will be handling the services. In Cumberland County, Carolyn Frederick Manuel, 79 of Fayetteville, died Friday, June 15, 2018. The funeral will be on Wednesday at 11 a.m. at Mount Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church. The viewing will be at Covenant Funeral Home on Tuesday from 3 to 7 p.m. Covenant Funeral Home will be handling the services. In the region and elsewhere, Craig Durant McLaurin passed peacefully on June 11, 2018. A memorial service will be held at 4 p.m. on Monday, June 18th, 2018 at First Baptist Church, located at 4621 Cameron Road in Hope Mills. Glenda Baxley Smith, 61 of Bladenboro, died Saturday, June 16, 2018. The funeral will be on Wednesday at 1 p.m. at Pleasant Grove Church. Visitation will be at Bladen Gaskins Funeral Home on Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. The burial will be at Brisson Cemetery. Bladen Gaskins Funeral Home will be handling the services. Retired Sergeant Major John Edward Griffith III, 61, of Robbins, passed away on Friday, June 15, 2016. I don't know if that's a typographical error. A celebration of life service will be held at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, June 19, 2018 in the Rogers and Brees Funeral Home Chapel with the Pastor Tracy Ponders officiating. The family will receive friends from 4:45 to 5:45 prior to the service at the funeral home. In lieu of flowers, the family requests donations be made to the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network at 1500 Rosecrans Avenue, Suite 200, Manhattan Beach, California, 90266. Services are entrusted to Rogers and Brees Funeral Home.
Billy Graham. Encouragement can go a long way in the workplace. From the writings of the Reverend Billy Graham, Mrs. D.B. writes, I'd probably enjoy my work more if it weren't for my boss. He never compliments me or says anything good about my work, and this really gets me down. I need a job, but how can I keep from getting discouraged in the face of his constant criticisms? Answer, have you noticed how your boss treats others in your workplace? He's only singling you out for criticism, and it's understandable why you get discouraged. But I suspect you aren't alone. Probably acts like this toward everyone. Unfortunately, some bosses believe that the best way to get people to do their jobs is to criticize them. Apparently, they're afraid that if they praise them, the workers might grow lazy. When King Solomon died, his son foolishly refused the advice of those who urged him to reward the people for their hard work. And, as a result, the nation split into two warring kingdoms. See 1 Kings chapter 12. We all need encouragement. And if someone does a good job, whether it's at work or in a family or anywhere else, they deserve our encouragement and appreciation. The Bible says a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold and settings of silver. Proverbs chapter 25, verse 11, New King James Version. Your boss, however, probably won't change, so don't let his personality get you down. Accept his comments without arguing and ask God to help you be the best worker you can possibly be. Pray for him also. His attitude may come from his own unhappiness or fear of failure. And if his criticisms never seem fair, it may be time for you to seek another job as God leads you. Remember the Bible's words. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Colossians chapter 3, verses 23 and 24. Tribune Content Pages.
Dear Abby, couple planning a family disagree about adoption. Dear Abby, my husband and I have been happily married for 2 years. We both want biological children together when the timing is right. A while ago, some friends adopted a little girl from Russia. The girl was orphaned and badly in need of medical treatment. My friends got her everything she needed and more, and I was touched by the experience of watching her develop into a happy, healthy child. I realized I had a desire to do something similar, so I told my husband I wanted to adopt a child. He immediately shot the idea down and said he'd never be interested in raising a kid that wasn't his. It broke my heart a little. I'm not willing to end my marriage over this, but how can I reconcile my hurt feelings and not feel resentful? Future Mama in Alabama. Dear Future Mama, the friends were fortunate because not all adoptions are successful and not all blended families are happy ones. Be glad your husband was honest with you and consider starting your family sooner than you originally planned, provided you and your husband are in agreement about the timing. Dear Abby, This has been bothering me for a while. Why do people put very old pictures of the deceased in the obituary? The people haven't looked like that for more than 40 plus years. When I look at the obituaries and see the picture, I think how sad it is that the person died so young. Then I read the article to see that they were in their 80s or 90s, and the photo was taken when they were in their 40s or even younger. I have seen high school pictures even. Close friends and family know what they look like when they die. Do you think they're fooling anyone? Current photo in Ohio. Dear current photo, please don't jump to conclusions. I don't think the pictures are published to fool anybody. This is how the family would like to remember their loved one in the full bloom of youth. If it comforts them, it should be fine with the rest of us because it's harming no one. Dear Abby, what's the polite way to get guests to leave at the end of the night? I'm a pretty direct person. So generally, I say, well, it's getting late now, and I'm tired and would like to go to bed. But my husband keeps telling me I'm being rude. When inviting someone over, it's in poor taste to ask them to leave by a certain time. I love that guests feel so comfortable and welcome in our home, but my husband and I work full time and have a 1-year-old. I need some me time at the end of the day. Rude host in the East. Dear Rude, a variation on how you're handling this would be to stand up and say, John and I want to thank you for coming, but we have to work tomorrow. For a guest to ignore that cue would be rude. An almost surefire way to ensure guests are out by a certain time would be to make clear when they are invited, and that evening would be between 7 and 10. Readers can write to Dear Abby at dearabby.com or P.O. Box 69440, Los Angeles, California.
Horoscope by Stella Wilder. Born today, you are often thought to be one who will do anything to have his or her way. This is true, of course, but there's an entirely different side to your nature as well. You are also extremely courteous and thoughtful. Gemini, May 21st through June 20th. You mustn't shy away from that which you know will do you good today. An offer of help can be taken seriously regardless of the situation. Cancer, June 21st through July 22nd. You may have to start the day more quickly than usual in order to free yourself up for something extraordinary happening later. Leo, July 23rd through August 22nd. Your routine is affected by the decisions of others today, but you mustn't be tempted to exact any kind of revenge. It will all work out. Virgo, August 23rd through September 22nd. Sure to give yourself what you need today, mind, body, and spirit. Habitual behavior may not do what you want it to do. Libra, September 23rd through October 22nd. You're in danger of overreaching today. Stick with what you know and what can get done in the time allotted. Scorpio, October 23rd through November 21st. What appears to be nothing more than an illusion is likely to be proven real before the day is out. You'll have much to do with that. Sagittarius, November 22nd through December 21st. The quality of your work may come under some scrutiny today from those who claim that nothing should be quite so easy. Capricorn, December 22nd through January 19th. There's more going on today than meets the eye. Much of what you must deal with at home is happening beneath the surface. Aquarius, January 20th through February 18th. You'll be taking in much more information than usual today because you are in a situation that heightens your awareness of all things. Pisces, February 19th through March 20th. You may find yourself traveling here and there and back again all in one day as a result of a scheduling error you cannot undo. Aries, March 21st through April 19th. You can shine a light on an issue that others must be made aware of today. Your relationships with family members may be under strain. Taurus, April 20th through May 20th. You are looking for things to criticize today, but such fault-finding serves a real purpose. It gives a false impression that you're working. Copyright 2018 United Feature Syndicate.
From the live section, a review. Fantastic Negrito has a great sequel. Fantastic Negrito has an incredible, inspiring backstory, but it would be a shame to unwittingly allow it to overshadow the issue at hand. The truly fantastic blend of blues, funk, rock, and R&B created on the Please Don't Be Dead by the man born Xavier DeFrancois as Negrito's songs feed on his personal experiences. You should at least know that he grew up with 13 siblings in a Muslim family which moved from Massachusetts to Oakland when he was 12, around 1980. He released an album, The X Factor, as Xavier in 1996, but a debilitating car crash in 1999. The theme of this album's cover contributed to a prolonged interval. The debut of this new career phase was the 2014 EP Fantastic Negrito and the Last Days of Oakwood, which won the Grammy for Best Contemporary Blues Album last year. Please Don't Be Dead pulverizes any fears of the dreaded sophomore salon. If album opening Plastic Hamburgers sounds like a Chris Cornell Lenny Kravitz mashup, Dark Windows is a heartfelt tribute to the former, whom Negrito toured with extensively. A boy named Andrew alternates a Middle Eastern sounding motif with R&B, while Transgender Biscuits has Tom Waits-like bullhorn vocals, as well as small oases of pop sounds. Bad Guy Necessity sounds like Al Green as the Hulk, all hurt bravado and aggression. The Suit That Won't Come Off and A Cold November Street are the most traditionally bluesy tracks. Though each has twists, Never Give Up is brief and Prince-like, with a choir of overdubbed Negritos and bull blank amber. It's deep funk with multiple personalities. Negrito puts himself in the middle of the fray with Please Don't Be Dead. Such a contemporary title, and offers this songs for the soundtrack of the lives of those who won't give up and are willing to carry on.
Girl Story, Little Women, and author Louisa May Alcott resonate 150 years later. By Sarah Betancourt, The Associated Press, Concord, Massachusetts. A century and a half before the #MeToo movement gave women a bold, new collective voice, Louisa May Alcott was lending them her own. Society had far different expectations of women in 1867 when publisher Thomas Niles asked Alcott to write a girl story. At a time when women were expected to marry, often did not hold employment, and could not vote, Alcott had her doubts about the success of Little Women. Since then, the coming-of-age book has been translated into more than 50 languages and made into films, a musical, and a recently aired PBS Masterpiece miniseries. The novel constantly finds new audiences as women worldwide confront sexual misconduct, misogyny, and pay inequity. Ayala Bodo, 34, of Appleton, Wisconsin, read Little Women as a girl and thinks it's still relevant. You could say that strong females in literature, TV, and every other medium have slowly shaped the minds of modern strong women. She says, "We grew up with Buffy, Hermione, Petrus, Jo, Lizzie Bennet, Sarah Crew, among others," she says, "as though we have almost been groomed to fight for what's right and to not let others take advantage of us." Alcott drew heavily from her experiences living in poverty with progressive parents Bronson and Abigail Alcott and 3 sisters in Concord, Massachusetts. Although her transcendentalist father led his family through 30 homes, one stands out as the place where Little Women was written, Orchard House. Alcott was 26 when her family moved into the then dilapidated house in 1858. The Enterprise and family turned the tenant farmhouse, once slated for destruction, to a place where Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and other literary neighbors would drop by for intellectual discussions. Bronson encouraged his wife and daughters to join and built Louisa a desk at a time when writing was considered by scientists to be injurious to the female psyche. Looking back, says Orchard House Executive Director Jan Turnquist, the Alcotts were feminists. They believed all humans have agency, she says. She tells of how Louisa May Alcott was the first woman to register to vote in Concord in 1879, and Massachusetts gave women the right to vote in town elections on education and children issues. In 1880, Alcott and 19 other women attended the Concord town meeting and cast their ballots. In a letter to periodical Woman's Journal, Alcott wrote of voting, "No bolt fell on our audacious heads, no earthquake shook the town." Alcott did other unconventional things. At 30, she served as a nurse in the Civil War. She traveled alone when most women could not. And she wrote stories that are the equivalent of a modern-day James Patterson thriller at a time when female authors were not popular. There's no evidence Alcott was ever sexually assaulted. She was harassed and had to endure misogyny as an ambitious, unmarried woman. After writing the first part of Little Women in 1868, Alcott received a flood of letters asking if the main character, Joe March, would marry neighbor Boy of Glory. Pulitzer Prize-winning Alcott historian John Madison says, her publisher said you have to marry her off and wanted the character to marry Glory. Alcott was mortified that her mother had to scrape to keep the family going financially. She knew what a trap marriage could be, Madison says. She very much intended not to marry Joe off at all. Alcott appeased Niles, the publisher, by writing in Professor Friedrich Bayer, a homely German professor, as a husband. One of Alcott's goals was to lift her family out of poverty. She took jobs as a teacher, seamstress, writer, and in one instance, a live-in companion for the sick sister of a man named James Richardson. Instead of having her tend to his sister, Richardson had 18-year-old Alcott do housekeeping and spend evenings listening to him reading romantic poetry. He started slipping suggestive notes behind her bedroom door and added back-breaking work to her chores as she rejected his advances. She quit, making only $4 for the 7-week stay. While she hesitates to call that a hashtag #MeToo encounter, Turnquist says it was sleazy and not appropriate and bordered on sexual harassment. Alcott wrote an essay on the experience. His friend James Field, editor of The Atlantic, assessed and said, "Stick to your teaching, you can, right?" Nevertheless, she persisted. She would be so supportive of the hashtag #MeToo movement and equal pay for equal work, Turnquist says. To celebrate the sesquicentennial, Orchard House will host many events, including a conversational series to discuss the book's modern-day relevance. On the actual 150th anniversary, September 30th, it will be read sequentially in parts at videotapes worldwide.
Virtual reality, the nation's biggest video game convention, and she knocked her computer opponent out cold. With the exception of a few boxing classes she'd taken, this was the closest Ching had come to fighting in a boxing match. It seemed almost real, she said with a laugh as she tried to catch her breath. The sounds were impactful, and my punches seemed like they landed properly. Beyond the new game announcements and software improvements, if there's anything that this year's Electronic Entertainment Expo confirmed, it's that virtual reality in the $116 billion worldwide gaming industry is here to stay. The platform is in its infancy. It's been available for sale to the masses only for about 2 years, but it's continuing to take giant steps with showings from VR makers such as Facebook's Oculus and Sony's PlayStation VR. Developers are banking on VR's growth. Sony alone showcased 14 games for its VR device at the conference, which wrapped up Thursday at the Los Angeles Convention Center. But developers and analysts acknowledge that VR gaming has a challenge. As developers experiment, their animations move faster than the technology. In VR, we're basically coming up with everything from scratch. Everything's brand new, said Michael Hampton, lead gameplay designer for the upcoming PlayStation VR shooter Blood and Truth. Obviously, there's a lot of challenges around making sure the experience is comfortable, he said. We've got our work cut out for us, but it's been an opportunity so far. Lewis Ward, a video game analyst at market intelligence firm IDC, said VR headsets haven't met sales expectations so far, but as the experience improves, sales will go up. They've been several million of those headsets sold globally, which is probably not what people expected. Ward said overall it's a steady, slow burn towards sales rather than an immediate pickup. Development is getting faster, Ward said. We're at the beginning stages of a long-term investment in VR. The technology is finally at a place where you can deliver a pretty solid experience at an affordable price point, he said. What needs to happen moving forward is taking time to figure out how to take advantage of the capabilities of VR and see what it can do. Incorporating VR into a game affects everything. The way players interact with the game, visuals, storytelling, and more. What worked when developing flat-screen games may not always work for VR games. Some developers said, aside from 360-degree view, playing in VR realities is an attempt to bring the player as close to the real feeling as possible. Looking around requires actual head movements rather than the flick of a joystick, and in the case of Blood and Truth, holstering a pistol calls for moving your hand towards your waist rather than simply pressing the X button, reloading a gun, making you reach for your ammo on your chest before placing new rounds in the weapon. Because players are more physically immense in a game than ever before, these smaller motions represent a fresh opportunity. Blood and Truth, senior producer James Oates said, things like moving and traversing can now reinvent for VR, Oates said. What we found is that people like the action and the VR is amazing, but some of those drama scenes where you're one-on-one with a character makes the cut scene something you may first-person experience. Cameron said developers have to get creative with storytelling. One of the main challenges is that we can control where we look, Cameron said. Imagine if you're making a film and everyone in the audience had their own camera and can point to it wherever they want during the film. It's the same kind of challenge we've got. So we've got to find ways to draw attention and draw your eye, he said.
This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast on the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. In making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our address is P.O. Box 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at area code 910-672-1600 or toll free at 1-844-709-5656. The radio hosts are
Beverly Simonette
and Robert King. And we are proud to serve you today. Conservative wins Columbia presidency by Christine Armario, the Associated Press, Bogota, Colombia. Yvonne Duque, the young conservative protege of a powerful former president, was elected Colombia's next leader Sunday after promising to roll back a fragile peace accord that has divided the South American nation. Duque captured almost 54% of the vote, putting him 12 points ahead of former leftist guerrilla Gustavo Petro in a tense runoff election that had appeared to be tightening in recent days. In the end, the prematurely graying 41-year-old sailed to victory, promising to change parts of the accord with leftist rebels, but not shred it to pieces as some of his hawkish allies have been urging. When he takes office in August, he will be Colombia's youngest president in more than a century. "I've come here to fulfill a dream," Kay said outside his polling center, "for Colombia to be governed by a new generation, one that wants to govern for all and with all, one that unites the country and turns the page on corruption." The new president will inherit a country still scarred by 5 decades of bloody armed conflict and grappling with soaring cocaine production. Former guerrillas of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia are struggling to reinsert themselves in civilian life in a nation where many people remain hesitant to forgive. Vast swaths of remote territory remain under the control of violent drug mafias and residual rebel bands. "Undoubtedly, for the peace process, this is an important test," said Patricia Munoz, a professor in political science at the Pontifical Xaverian University in Bogota. It was the first presidential election since the signing of the peace agreement ending Latin America's longest-running conflict, and was as much about the accord as it was deeply entrenched issues such as corruption and inequality. Petro galvanized young voters and drew millions to public plazas with his fiery speeches vowing to improve the lives of the poor, disenfranchised Colombians. And though he failed to catch Duque, his more than 8 million votes marked the biggest ballot box success for a leftist presidential contender in a country where leftist politicos were stigmatized over fears of potential ties to guerrilla causes. He took his loss in stride, refusing to call it a defeat and saying that for now he and his supporters won't form a government, echoing the words used by socialist revolutionary Hugo Chavez following his failed 1992 coup against Venezuela's government. 6 years later, Chavez was elected president, setting the stage for a surge of the left throughout Latin America. "I don't think there is a single Colombian who thinks things are going well today," Petro said after casting his ballot with his young daughter in hand. Colombia's peace process to end a conflict that left more than 250,000 people dead is considered largely irreversible. Most of the more than 7,000 rebels who've surrendered their weapons have started new lives as farmers, community leaders, and journalists. Last year, the rebels launched a new political party and will soon occupy 10 seats in Congress. But the 2016 accord remains contentious, and he pledged throughout his campaign to make changes that will deliver peace with justice.
Governor vetoes 2 bills. Roy Cooper blocks measure on judicial districts and elections, but the legislature is expected to override the decision. Democratic Governor Roy Cooper vetoes 2 bills, adds more uncertainty to already unusual state elections this fall for judges and in races where new political parties want to field candidates. Cooper announced late Friday, less than 3 hours before a 10-day state constitutional deadline, his decision to block a pair of measures. One adjusts many judicial election districts in Wake, Mecklenburg, Pender, and New Hampshire counties. The other, in part, prevents the Green and Constitution parties this year from nominating for the November ballot any losing candidate primaries for the same office. The new parties didn't participate in last month's primaries and are holding nominating conventions. The Constitution Party of North Carolina was holding its convention Saturday. The bill also requires criminal background checks for key state and county election board workers and makes more directions about how this November's election for judicial races will be administered. The GOP-controlled legislature already decided last fall there would be no 2018 primaries for the officially partisan races, trial court, and appeals court judgeships. Rather, candidates statewide began filing Monday for the seats, with the top vote getting for each position winning in November regardless of the number of candidates. The bill Cooper vetoed still directs each candidate's political affiliation on ballots. Cooper wants the old method of non-partisan judicial races. In a release announcing his vetoes, Cooper said continued election meddling for partisan advantage weakens public confidence. Judges' races should be free of partisan labels. As of the judicial election redistricting bill, Cooper kept to his long-standing narrative since remapping proposals began, surfacing a year ago that the General Assembly is harming justice by trying to rig the courts by reducing the people's vote. Piecemeal attempts to target judges create unnecessary confusion and show contempt for North Carolina's judiciary, he added. Republicans are expected to attempt to override the vetoes next week. The GOP can override vetoes at will as long as their House and Senate caucuses remain united. Veto will be overridden on Tuesday, House Rules Committee David Lewis of Harnett County tweeted late Friday night. Senate Leader Phil Berger wasn't immediately available for comment Saturday. Spokeswoman Shelley Carver said Republicans have said they reworked the Mecklenburg County Superior Court district in one vetoed bill because large population imbalance in the current districts were likely unconstitutional, but other changes were beyond that. Authors of other election bills said the background checks and other security changes protected voting from outside mischief, potentially by hackers and the sore loser. Provisions for new political parties conform to current law preventing losing primary candidates from running as independent or write-in candidates in the fall. The fate of the judicial legislation could force election officials to alter candidate filing in some alternate districts midstream based on what laws are enacted and potential candidates may have to refile. Add to all of this more uncertainty. A federal judge has yet to decide after a trial earlier this month over whether canceling the judicial primaries violated the constitutional rights of the Democratic Party.
Neighbors versus hog farm. Fleischer. The people who live in a row of small homes on a short dirt road leading to Billy Kinlaw's hog farm don't have a problem with him, and they don't want to see him go out of business. Still, those neighbors appeared in federal court in April as plaintiffs in a lawsuit that says Kinlaw's farm stinks, creates clouds of flies, and lowers property values. The neighbors complain about the tractor trailers that rumble past their homes and the buzzards that swoop in to feed on dead hogs. Some days, they say in a lawsuit, the stench is so bad from thousands of hogs that they can't go outside. On April 26th, a federal jury sided with the neighbors in a $51 million judgment. These jurors ruled that the farm is a legal nuisance and effectively putting Kinlaw out of business. Only 4 of Kinlaw's 12 barns still hold hogs. Soon, all of the animals will be gone. Kinlaw did nothing wrong. He broke no state laws. He said he has always been told that his farm was among the nicest, if not the nicest, of the 2,200 hog operations in North Carolina. He said he never heard neighbors complain until the lawsuit was filed. It wasn't even Kinlaw who was being sued. The lawsuit, and 9 others expected to be heard this year, was against Murphy Brown LLC, the hog production arm of the corporate giant Smithfield Foods. Murphy Brown supplies the hogs under contract with Kinlaw and thousands of other growers who raise them for Smithfield. After the jury's verdict, Murphy Brown cut off its supply of hogs to Kinlaw. Lawyers for the plaintiffs didn't seek an order for injunctive relief that could have required Smithfield Foods to fix anything that might be causing problems for Kinlaw's neighbors. By that fact, Smithfield has no choice but to shut down Kinlaw's farm, said Joyce Fitzpatrick, a Smithfield spokeswoman. It could be sued again. But a jury awarded nearly $51 million to Kinlaw's neighbors, and the figure was reduced to about $3 million under state law. Still, that kind of money is getting attention. In all, about 500 people have joined 26 nuisance lawsuits against Smithfield. No one can predict the outcome of those cases, but Smithfield and state agricultural officials say a lot is at stake. The lawsuits are a serious threat to a major industry, to North Carolina's entire economy, and to the jobs and livelihoods of tens of thousands of North Carolinians, said Kiera Lombardo, Smithfield's senior vice president of corporate affairs, in a statement. Ken Sullivan, Smithfield's president and chief executive, said that dire warning applies not only to Smithfield, but to poultry growers and every other agricultural industry in the state. If we keep losing these suits, it's going to be very difficult to continue to do business in North Carolina. Sullivan said Friday in a telephone interview in North Carolina, do we want agriculture or not? If we don't, I don't know what there is going to be in eastern North Carolina. Smithfield operates one of the largest slaughterhouses in the world in Layton County, the town of Tar Heel, employing about 5,000 people. Sullivan acknowledged that he is extremely disappointed over the lawsuits, which he believes were spawned by out-of-state ambulance-chasing lawyers that show up for people who have never complained before. That's what they are after, Sullivan said. Money. Kinlaw has spent a good part of his life running an insurance business in the little Layton County town of Dublin. For the last 24 years, he has also raised hogs for Smithfield Foods. Now, for Shane 80, Kinlaw is hesitant to talk publicly because his lawyers say another trial is coming. But he is upset and angry. He said he worked on the farm 16 to 18 hours a day. He just spent $400,000 to upgrade it. His farm, which he had planned to pass down to his children, is all but gone, possibly for good. It's not a pleasant situation, and it's hard to control yourself under these circumstances, Kinlaw said. Somebody takes that away from you, and you haven't done anything. That's pretty strong. The same fate could await Joey Carter, a former Eulahville police chief who raises hogs for Smithfield Farms in Duplin County. Right now, Joey Carter is sitting in the courtroom, scared for his farm, said Andy Curlis, head of the North Carolina Pork Council. Carter's farm is at the forefront of the second nuisance lawsuit against Smithfield Foods. The civil trial began May 29th in front of Judge Earl Britt, U.S. District Court in Raleigh. In the first trial, lawyers for Kinlaw's neighbors picked the case they wanted to move forward first. In this case, Smithfield's lawyers got to choose. The facts in both cases are strikingly similar. A group of neighbors allege that the farms are a nuisance and that Smithfield isn't doing enough to make the problems disappear. The group's lawyers, led by Michael Hasky of Texas, say Smithfield could resolve the biggest issue, odor, but isn't willing to spend the money to do so. Smithfield counters that there is little it can do, maintains that the best technology in North Carolina for storing and disposing hog waste remains a system of lagoons and spray fields. Under that system, used for decades, hog waste is stored in cesspools, where it decomposes before the surface water is sprayed on adjacent farm fields. Neighbors of the hog farm say the mist from the spray drifts onto their properties building outside walls of their homes.
Ooh, boy.
They have complained that living next to a hog farm can cause stress, respiratory problems, increased blood pressure, and other ailments. And research has shown they're right. Testimony last week illustrates the opposing views. Casey, representing the neighbors of Carter's Farm, continually sought answers as to why Smithfield won't pay for technology he said it's proven to reduce hog farm odors. Among the technology Casey mentioned are lagoon covers, biodigesters, and other equipment that trap methane gas and convert it to electrical power. Tom Butler, whose Harnett County hog farm near Lillington has won awards for its environmental advances, has testified against Smithfield. Butler said in an interview Thursday that lagoon covers and related equipment at his farm supply energy to 28 homes, and he hopes to someday power 122 more. Butler acknowledged that in the early days his farm stunk. He said it still produces odor from its spray fields, but the lagoon covers, he said, made his neighbors a lot happier. When we installed the covers, they told us it was like the farm went away, Butler said. As he said in court that Smithfield could outfit its growers 2,000 lagoons in North Carolina with covers and equipment for about $500 million. He noted for the jury that Smithfield earned $923 million after taxes last year, while its Chinese parent company, the WH Group, earned $1.5 billion. Casey also noted that the Attorney General of Missouri ordered lagoon covers to be used at all hog farms in that state to control odors. On the witness stand Wednesday was Greg Smith, Smithfield's president of hog operations. Smith testified that lagoon covers may offer a slight improvement in odor control, but he questioned their overall value. He said covers work better in Missouri because the cooler climate causes bacteria to behave differently. He added that covers also create the need for expanded spray fields because the concentration of nitrogen increases. There's not a technology in North Carolina that performs better than a lagoon cover and spray fields, Smith testified more than once. It has long been the underlying debate for an agricultural commodity with razor-thin profit margins. If we can't grow a hog as competitively as our competitors, then the competitors will grow all of the hogs, Smith said. Sullivan, Smithfield's CEO, said that although the company has turned an overall profit, it has lost money 6 of the last years on its hog operations. We're getting killed on these hog farms, he said. The idea is we have plenty of money to fix it. We don't in hogs. In 1999, Smithfield entered an agreement with the state in which it agreed to pay $15 million for scientific research to develop technology that, among other things, would significantly reduce odors from farms. Smithfield agreed to use the technology on its farms if it proved to significantly reduce odors and was economically practical. Years later, researchers agreed that certain technology could get the hog farms past the smell test. It's the economic hurdle that's still in question. Will Hendrick, a staff attorney for the environmental group Waterkeeper Alliance in Chapel Hill, was among those who believe Smithfield should pay to stop the odors and other ills. There's no question that technology exists that can treat and better manage swine waste, said Hendrick, who is the manager of the North Carolina Pure Farms Pure Waters campaign. The reality is they just have been reluctant to do what's necessary.
Farmer kills 19. Taliban rejects ceasefire extension. The Kabul, Afghanistan. A suicide bomber struck in Afghanistan eastern city of Jalalabad on Sunday, killing at least 19 people in the second attack in as many days, targeting Taliban fighters. Security forces and civilians celebrating a holiday ceasefire. The Taliban later rejected an extension of the ceasefire. The Jalalabad Kamalal, executive of the Provincial Health Department, said another 60 people were wounded in the attack, which struck a crowd of people as they left the governor's compound. Saturday's attack, which also took place in Jalalabad, killed at least 36 people and wounded 65, according to Kamalal, director of the Provincial Health Department. No one has claimed the attacks. but they appeared to be the work of the Islamic State group, which is not included in the ceasefire and has clashed with the Taliban in the past. The local IS affiliate has a strong presence in the province. The bomber on Saturday targeted a gathering of Taliban fighters who were celebrating a 3-day truce coinciding with the Al-Dhafir holiday. After the attack, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani announced the 9-day extension of the ceasefire. The chairman of the High Peace Council, a government party charged with negotiating an end of the nearly 17-year war, called on the Taliban to accept the extended ceasefire and join the peace process. We hope that the extension of the ceasefire will be announced by the leadership of the Taliban. Mohammed Karim Karali told the news conference in the capital, Kabul. He said there had been an exchange of views between the government and the Taliban over the past week without elaborating. But later Sunday, the Taliban announced that their ceasefire had ended and they had no intention of extending it. The ceasefire was announced by the Taliban for just the 3 days of the Eid holidays, which have come to an end this Sunday evening. Taliban spokesman Zabiari Mahdi in a statement, all Mujahideen of the Taliban should continue their operations against foreign invaders and their puppets.
Shrimp rises, overall North Carolina commercial catch dips. Associated Press, Morehead City. North Carolina officials say commercial fishing in the state declined by weight last year, even as shrimp volume increased to a record high. The North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries issued a release this month saying fishermen sold about 54 million pounds of fish and shellfish to North Carolina dealers in 2017. It's down about 9% from the previous year and below the 5-year average. But the $96.5 million estimated value of the catch was slightly higher than the previous year. Biologists say the drop in volume is largely due to a decrease in hard blue crab landings by more than a quarter from the previous year. Meanwhile, shrimp landings increased to the highest volume on record since the state began its current measurement program in 1994. The state reports that the value of the shrimp was nearly $30 million. The data is collected through forms that North Carolina seafood dealers must fill out when they buy from fishermen who dock in the state. Jason Rock, a state marine fisheries biologist, tells the Virginian Pilot newspaper that hard crabs are being overfished. The crabs were still the leading type of seafood caught by volume last year, but their sales value is below shrimp. Rock said that surveys by biologists show drops in a number of young and adult crabs, which could be a bad sign for the species. 2 years ago, the state required modifications to crab pots to allow young crabs to escape the trap. But commercial fishermen disagreed with the concerns by state biologists. Murray Bridges, a longtime waterman and owner of Endurance Seafood in Collington, said the decline in commercial catch as measured by the state can be attributed to crabbers switching to the booming shrimp industry. "I'm out there every day," he said, adding that he opposes more restrictions.
Hundreds of kids wait in Texas facility. Inside an old warehouse in South Texas, hundreds of children wait in a series of cages created by metal fences. One cage had 20 children inside, scattered about are bottles of water, bags of chips, and large foil sheets intended to serve as blankets. One teenager told an advocate who visited that she was helping care for a young child she didn't know because the child's aunt was somewhere else in the facility. She said she had to show others in her cell how to change the girl's diaper. The U.S. Border Patrol on Sunday allowed reporters to briefly visit the facility where it holds families arrested at the southern U.S. border, responding to new criticism and protests over Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy and resulting separation of families. More than 1,100 people were inside the large, dark facility that divided into separate wings for unaccompanied children, adults on their own, and mothers and fathers with children. The cages in each wing open out into common areas to use portable restrooms. The overhead lighting in the warehouse stays on around the clock. The Border Patrol said close to 200 people inside the facility were minors unaccompanied by a parent. Over 500 were family units, parents and children. Many adults who crossed the border without legal permission could be charged with illegal entry and placed in jail away from their children. Reporters were not allowed by agents to interview any of the detainees or take photos. Nearly 2,000 children have been taken from their parents since Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced the policy, which directs Homeland Security officials to refer all cases of illegal entry into the United States for prosecution. Church groups and human rights advocates have sharply criticized the policy, calling it inhumane. Stories have spread of children being torn from their parents' arms and parents not being able to find their kids, find where their kids have gone. A group of congressional lawmakers visited the same facility Sunday and were set to visit a longer-term shelter holding around 1,500 children, many of whom were separated from their parents. Those kids inside who have been separated from their parents are already being traumatized, said Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon, who was denied entry earlier this month to children's shelters. It doesn't matter whether the floor is swept and the bed sheets tucked in tight. In Texas' Rio Grande Valley, the busiest corridor for people trying to enter the U.S. Border Patrol, officials argue that they have to crack down on migrants and separate adults from children as a deterrent to others. When you exempt a group of people from the law, that creates a draw, said Manuel Padilla, the Border Patrol's chief agent here. That creates the trends right here. Agents running the holding facility, generally known as Ursula from the name of the street it's on, said everyone detained is given adequate food, access to showers and laundry, clothes, and medical care. People are supposed to move through the facility quickly. Under U.S. law, children are required to be turned over within 3 days to shelters funded by the Department of Health and Human Services. Padilla said agents in the Rio Grande Valley have allowed families and children under the age of 5 to stay together in most cases. An advocate who spent several hours in the facility Friday said she was deeply troubled by what she found. Michelle Bain, Director of Immigrants' Rights at Women's Refugee Commission, met with a 16-year-old girl who had been taking care of a young girl for 3 days. The teen and others in their cage thought the girl was 2 years old. She had to teach other kids in the cell to change her diaper, Bain said. Bain said that after an attorney started to ask questions, agent found the girl's aunt and reunited the two. It turned out the girl was actually 4 years old. Part of the problem was that she didn't speak Spanish, but each a language indigenous to Guatemala. She was so traumatized that she wasn't talking, Brain said. She was just curled up in a little ball.
And this concludes this reading of Monday's Fayetteville Observer. Your radio host have been
Devlin Simonette
and Robert Bean. Enjoyed being with you this morning. Thank you for tuning us in and have a wonderful day.